Hey, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for this talk. This is what Stairway to Heaven can teach us about software development. That might seem like a bizarre title, but we'll get into that into a minute, in a few minutes. First thing I want to start off with is this slide over here. You might have heard it before. At this event, we're using the Slido system to keep track of questions. So if there are any questions that pop up into your head during my talk, please feel free to submit them here, and we will get back to them in the end. Although most questions I got from this talk earlier was like, can you please go on playing a few more songs? So those are valid questions too, right? If you got similar requests, please do not hesitate to communicate them. I think this talk, there's only one way for this talk to start, at least according to me, and that's just by starting to play the song that this talk is all about before we do any introductions or anything, right? Because those are boring anyway. And it also gives me a good chance to do audio checks, so. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold. What come next, J-Con? And she's right, buying a stairway to heaven. People are afraid to sing out loud in public, I get that. It's okay to shout the lyrics, right? So some of you remember the lyrics to this song, right? Are there people who know the entire song by heart, perhaps? No? Well, I know it by heart, but I have to in order to be able to do this talk, right? But what you might not know is that there's another person in this universe, or actually a different universe, far, far away, a long time ago, that also knows the lyrics to this song. It is Anakin Skywalker. Any Star Wars fans in the room? Yeah, a few? Yay! I feel obligated to use a little Star Wars reference here, right? Because of they had these ribbons that you could attach to your badge, and there were Star Trek ribbons only, and I was kind of missing the Star Wars vibe there, so I had to include some references in my talk. So the Star Wars fans in the room are probably wondering right now if the fact that Anakin Skywalker knows this song by heart is canon or extended universe. They might not have heard about it at all until now. Either way, I recently heard from a very credible source that he does know the lyrics. And I think it's one of those abilities some consider to be unnatural. One of the abilities that he has taught himself. So Anakin would go, I'm the most powerful Jedi in the world. I know the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven by heart. And Padme would answer him, knowing those lyrics doesn't necessarily make you a better software developer, right? And Anakin would just be silent, and Padme would ask, right? So it seems like Padme is not convinced at all that this ability makes Anakin a better software developer. Well, it looks like that's where she is mistaken. And we will discover why later in this talk. Though when you think about it, the ability to learn lyrics by heart is not as unnatural as the Emperor seems to think. I don't think you even have to be force sensitive to be able to do it. You see, as humans, just mere humans, so not Jedi or Sith, we have this remarkable ability to remember song lyrics a lot better than just a piece of plain text that has no melody associated to it whatsoever. I think we've all experienced this one way or another. And actually, I used this exact phenomenon when I was in high school to memorize the gritty details of a particular course. I used to write little songs, and they helped me immensely. For example, I did an economics class, and we had to learn which countries would start using the euro currency back in the year 2002. and I just kept forgetting a few of them. So I was already involved in music, and I thought, why wouldn't I just write a song? And that might help me remember it a lot better. So I wrote a song, used some existing melody, and then I memorized the lyrics. And I never forgot for a moment after that which countries would switch to the euro. This is a reconstruction of the song that I used to write back then. Euros, they're the new big thing on our continent. Euros, if you don't get them, you won't be glad. Euros, Finland is one of them. Euros, Italy's joining in. Euros, France wants a part of it. Luxembourg's also in. Yeah, the Dutchies will get them too. And Belgian francs are through. Whoa. Euros. If you like trading, they will be key. Euros. They will be released by the ECB. Euro shillings have been replaced. Pesetas have gone to waste. Marken sind auch vorbei. Yeah, drachmas will say good night. And the same goes for Irish pounds. Escudos no longer count. Whoa. Euros. Thanks. I was kind of known for using this tactic on my high school. Although I think at this point, I'm not sure you still would want the euro, but back then everyone wanted the euro, right? And later in my life, not just in school life, but also in professional life, I used a bit of songwriting to memorize some more stuff. So back in 2021, I was aiming to renew my Oracle Certified Programmer Java Developer certificate. Back then, version 11 was the latest version, so I studied for that. And I couldn't quite remember all the data types that were allowed in a switch statement, so I wrote another song to help me remember them. Do I have to tell the story of the many rules that go with the switch case? Not all data types are valid, so here are the ones you really should embrace. Strings and enums work quite well, no problem. Bytes and chars and shorts and ints work too. Their wrapper counterparts are also valid, but other data types will not go through. I don't know why, but it seems like the songs that were written by the police work fairly well. Maybe they should be renamed to, I don't know, the study police, because they helped me study very well for quite some time. So we've gathered that songs can help you remember stuff, right? But is it actually worth the trouble? I mean, each time you want to remember something that you can't remember, you would have to find a new song by the police that you haven't used before, come up with some lyrics that help you capture the thing you want to remember, and also being able to make it rhyme, because that's the part that helps you remember it. I mean, that sounds like a lot of work. So what if this phenomenon that I just talked about would work in reverse as well? And what I mean by that is, what if we just took a song that we already know and see if we can do anything useful for it? It's sitting in your brain already. Why just not make use of it? So let's take Stairway to Heaven, for example. It is sitting in my brain already. well, not in the full version in yours, but at least a few people knew the first line, right? So let's make use of the first line at least. Allegedly, it's sitting in the brain of Anakin Skywalker. So let's find out if this knowledge can benefit us while we're doing software development. So now I'm kind of finished with explaining the title of the talk, and we're 10 minutes in already, so that is promising. But now you understand why I want to achieve something like this. And it exists for simply one reason, this talk. It's to prove Padme wrong, because we can be better software developers by knowing the lyrics to this song by heart. And more on that later. So let's talk a bit about why I'm the one giving it. My name is Hanno Embregts. I'm an IT consultant at InfoSupport, based in the Netherlands. Recently became a Java champion. That means I really like Java development, but I also like making music. Actually, they're my two most favorite things in the world, but I only get paid for one of them, and it's up to you to decide which one earns me money and which one is just, something I do on the side. Well, if you're in the Netherlands area and you're looking for a fun job, come see me after the talk. Whenever I can, I try to combine the two of them. The best scenario for me is when I can get paid to play some music, of course. And this is a photo from Devox Belgium, when I did another talk that was about music and software. That talk is about the multiple ways my daily work as a Java developer reminds me of certain songs. I think it's important to include a reference to that so you can understand where I'm coming from. So for example, when I'm in a rather average day and using a Java method in a library that is named stop, this is what my brain does every single time. So I'm typing this Java method stop, right? And my brain goes, hammer time. Can't touch this. This plays inside my brain, right? Whenever I do such a thing. When I'm listening to a customer or a product owner explaining requirements to me, this happens inside my brain. Hey, slow it down. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? Happens automatically. I can't really control it, actually. When I'm fixing a bug, this song plays in my head. I will try to fix you. Or when I'm doing a git push, pushing my commits, push it. Right? I'm sure some of you must have a similar thing, right? You're just typing git push and you're going, push it. No, I'm the only one. Okay, awkward. My colleagues are very used to this behavior by me. It's just, they accept it as a given by now. So songs make me think about software development, which means Stairway to Heaven makes me think about software development, which makes me the perfect person to explain to you how this song can influence the way we develop software. In fact, when I was looking at the lyrics in a bit more detail, I even got to the point that I believed this song holds a few good lessons on software development. Lessons that can make your next software project a bit better. So let's keep track of these lessons by filling out this slide. I'll just repeat the slide every time we encounter something worth remembering, right? And that way we can go through the entire song and see if we can make our developer lives a bit easier. So let's dive into this song, right? And we're diving into interpretation of song lyrics now, and this can be a tricky business. I think most of us here would agree that Stairway to Heaven is a pretty great song and rather iconic in its own right. However, its lyrics have sparked countless debates over their meaning, which is why so many interpretations exist. So if you go to a lyrics-related community online, such as songmeaning.net or lyricfind.com, any internet user can post their interpretations of the song lyrics there and see if they gain some traction, which ultimately, obviously leads to this. And we can't have that, of course, people being wrong on the internet. Being a diehard XKCD fan, I've also included the alt text because I just hate it when people present these comics but don't provide the alt text, so that's what I did for you. But we can conclude from this comic also, in general, interpretation of people's opinions, and people's opinions about lyrics can be a tricky business. We can all be certain right now that not everyone is going to agree with us. But I think we are allowed our own opinions. In fact, preparing for this talk, I read an interview with the guitarist of Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, and he was interviewed on the Stairway song. And he said, you can have your own interpretation of what this track is, what it implies, or even what it means to you. So we don't have to care how many people on the internet think we are wrong. Jimmy said it's okay. So we're doing this. We are interpreting this song through the glasses of a software developer in the context of software development. So are you all ready for some song interpretation? Yes, okay. Let's get started then. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. When she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get what she came for. Ooh, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. Okay, let's break it down here. The lady seems to be our customer or our domain expert or our product owner, and she has a vision. All that glitters is gold, so that must be her business case. She wants to realize this vision by buying herself a nice, shiny new software product. Well, that's where we come in, obviously. We are department software. And here we get our first customer needs. Apparently, if the stores are all closed, very poetic, but can we then conclude that this means availability after office hours? Does it mean like 4 or 5 nines availability? I'm not sure, but it certainly looks like it, so we would have to discuss this requirement a bit further with her. Also, she says, with a word, I can get what I come for. That must mean she wants speech recognition, right? Maybe throw a bit of LLM in there. That must be what she wants. Although there's one problem, we can't be sure until we've asked her, right? So anyone has this lady's email address, phone number, Teams account, Slack account? I mean, we have to get in touch with her. Now, if this was an actual software project, I would really like to verify these so-called customer needs that we were just interpreting here. So I would ask things like, what do you mean when the stores are all closed? And is it true you want speech recognition, or do you want some AI in there? What do you want to achieve with that feature? Does that make you money? Does that decrease your costs? In my experience, the customer's answers can often surprise you and lead to the conclusion that she might need what she's asking for, but she could also need something else that is maybe less complicated or even cheaper. So let's have that conversation. And this is why I think lesson 1 should be verify the needs of the customer. I did a whole lot of interpreting right there, but I want to make sure that we're building what she needs, not what I think she needs. There's a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, 'cause you know sometimes words have two meanings. In a tree by the brook, there's a songbird who sings. Sometimes all of our thoughts are misgiven. It makes me wonder. Oh, it makes me wonder. Okay, so the requirements that she wants are written on a sign that sticks on the wall. That's very smart, because then we can read them again. And sometimes words have two meanings. She wants to make sure we stick to these requirements that were written down and the right interpretation of them. But you know how it goes. Even requirements that are written down can be misunderstood, or they can become a misremembered version of what the customer actually asked in the meeting when we sat down. And if we want to be smart software developers here, then we would use our experience about software features or user experience. So why wouldn't we just implement this the way we want it or the way we remember it? Well, then your idea could certainly be better, but again, talk to your customer first and let her make the call from a business perspective. We should be careful with assumptions. Like I said, interpreting requirements can be dangerous. By default, it's best not to assume anything. So let's spend some time verifying these requirements and our interpretation of them. And talk through the customer through everything, through it all. So this is lesson number 2, verify the requirements and the way we interpret them. Okay, let's take a small break from lyrics interpretation. I want to address a question that some of you probably have been having since the start of this talk. And it has something to do with the movie Wayne's World. Who has seen the movie Wayne's World? A few of them, so you'll probably know where I'm going with this. For those who haven't seen it, it's okay. I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, you probably have seen the meme that comes from this movie with the teenagers in the car doing the headbanging while listening to a recording of Bohemian Rhapsody. Oh, mamma mia, mamma mia, mamma mia, let me go. Beelzebub has the devil put aside for me, for me, for me. And here comes the headbanging, right? So you think you can stone me and spit in my eye? So you think you can love me and leave me to die? Oh, baby, yeah, can't do this to me, baby. Just gonna get out, just gonna get right out of here. Right, so that movie. And at some point in this movie, after headbanging to Bohemian Rhapsody, the main character, Wayne, walks into a guitar store, picks up a guitar he's been wanting to buy for a while now. He starts plucking the strings, and then what happens? A guitar store employee stops him and points at the sign, also a sign on the wall that says, "No Stairway to Heaven." Right, and Wayne goes, "No stairway, denied." Now, ever since that movie came out, playing this song, at least in a guitar store, is frowned upon, right? Because it's a very popular practice song for guitar players who are just starting out. There are more songs like this, by the way, "Smoke on the Water," "Smells Like Teen Spirit," all songs that people want to practice and be good at when they're starting out as guitar players. So the question is it okay for me to play this song here on stage? Everyone seems to be fed up with these practice songs, right? Well, I was thinking about this, and if you are a guitar store employee, it makes perfect sense, right? You have to be at work all day, and you have to listen to the classics being butchered on a daily basis, right? So that must be a very painful experience that you have to relive through every day. And I was thinking I'm probably fine here playing it on stage as long as I'm not butchering it, right, and not making your ears all very achy. So wouldn't you agree? How am I doing so far? Is it good enough? Yes? Okay. Okay, thanks. Otherwise, I'll just stop. I mean, I'm not kidding. So let's continue to parse this song then, and let's see if we can get it a bit further towards the end. And I'll promise to do my very best not to butcher it. I can't promise anything about the solo, but the rest, yeah, okay. There's a feeling I get when I look to the west, and my spirit is crying for leaving. In my thoughts I have seen rings of smoke through the trees, and the voices of those who stand looking. Ooh, and it makes me wonder. Oh, really makes me wonder. So west, that's the wind direction where the sun sets. This has been a metaphor for death since Egyptian times, I think. So this part of the song must be about loss or about things ending, for that matter. We're software developers, so from our perspective, the project might fail or it might even be cancelled. I mean, we read the news daily. There are a lot of projects that never get to the finish line, which is sad, of course. A lot of people's time and money wasted. But rings of smoke here can be a form of communication. In this part of the song, this can only mean bad news, of course. Those who stand looking must be the stakeholders. Those who attend the sprint demos and hear that the project isn't doing too well, or perhaps they've heard the bad publicity outside of the sprint demos, which is arguably worse, of course. All of this makes us wonder, will the project ever succeed? Well, at the start of a project, you have the time to think about what can go wrong with this project and what you could do about it. So if you have ever been involved in project inception, or maybe related to the architecture of the project, you might recognize that you identify risks in this project. So identify risk early and mitigate them wherever possible. If you are aware of them before the start of the project or at the start of the project, you can have a clear mind about them and keep them in your memory while you're working on this project, and revisit them once in a while to see if they still are relevant or valid, or you have to do extra stuff to make sure they don't happen, or not as often. Every software project will also eventually encounter bad spells, right? Which will lead to a drop in confidence for the stakeholders or the end users if they are present at the sprint reviews, which is why it's so important to show them you are aware of any bad publicity that has been flying around. So lesson number 4, acknowledge any publicity, good or bad. Of course, good publicity is very easy to acknowledge. It makes you look good. Bad publicity is important to acknowledge. You have to show that you are aware of any risks or flaws with your design or your approach, and to give everyone a sneak preview of how you intend to tackle those flaws. And it's whisper that soon, if we all call the tune, then the piper will lead us to reason, and a new day will dawn for those who stand long, and the forest will echo with laughter. Well, this part has no lyrics, so I'm not going to play it. Let's go on to the bridge of the song, right? If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. It's just a spring clean for the May Queen. Yes, there are 2 paths you can go back, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. So we have to see how we can restore some of the confidence that the stakeholders might have lost during the bad spell of the project, right? And it looks like there is someone who can improve things, at least according to these lyrics. An architect, perhaps, or a lead developer. He or she will lead us to reason, whatever that means. Why this person has to play the bagpipes, the piper, that is beyond me. I don't have a clue. You can't expect me to be able to explain everything in these lyrics, right? I must admit I was doing quite a thorough job, but there have to be some mysterious elements in this song after all, and sometimes they have to stay that way. But it does seem like there is hope for this project after all, but how do we achieve it? Well, the lyrics here say our hedgerows are bustling, which means they are shaking, they are moving, so something is happening. And I think this is a good thing because this is our spring clean, which from our perspective must mean refactoring, right? Spring cleaning, refactoring. We are investing some time to clean up our code and to get to a better productivity in the future. Now, I hope you are all keeping track of your architectural decisions. Who is doing this? ADRs, for example. Very good. I really like ADRs. In fact, last week at a project, I revisited an ADR and concluded that I needed to write a new one to supersede the old one. And it was great stuff. We could read about everything we were thinking about while solving a problem, and it turned out that circumstances had changed and we needed a new decision. So we revisited it, and I really liked the fact that we could read up on it. Because the best architecture decision record holds a list of alternatives, a number of solutions that were considered but not eventually chosen. Well, like I said, if circumstances change, and in this case, according to the lyrics, the project isn't going so well and it needs to become more productive, then it could be a good idea to reconsider some of these decisions and review the alternatives. For example, this is definitely a thing I've done in the past as a software architect. There might be an alternative that is a bit less ambitious, but that will do fine for the time being. For example, if you're using an event-based architecture and you need a production-ready event bus that has persistence and everything and rolled out in the cloud and everything, that might be a lot of work. And it could also be that until you go to production, an in-memory event bus will be fine for now, because other features might be more important to the stakeholders. You can always revisit that decision later. So that is something you can do. And in certain situations, at least when we think about architectural decision records, there is still time to change the road you're on. I remember the first project I did as a software architect, and in the first 2 weeks I had to decide on everything, right? Programming language, app framework, right? The amount of tests that we were going to do, the test strategy, test pyramid, all that stuff, infrastructure. And I learned the hard way that it is a good idea to postpone decisions that can be postponed, right? So eventually, the things that you can't postpone, like choosing your programming language, you should decide on those first. But you can't make all decisions in the first 2 weeks of your greenfield startup project. So try to postpone those whenever you can. And of course, when the moment is there and you can't postpone it any longer, of course, make the decision then, but not a minute sooner. I think if you include some clean code principles in your definition of done, it will help you out very much. Of course, you should agree with your team what principles from clean code speak to you and what you think is relevant. But when stakeholders are complaining about a lack of productivity, my reflex response in the past used to be deliver a lot of value in a very short amount of time to regain their trust. And this is a fine solution in the short term, but stakeholders tend to get used to this higher productivity level. And so a few sprints down the future, in the future, they'll be disappointed again because you can't keep up with that productivity in the long run. So if you take some time now to invest in tomorrow's productivity, get the stakeholders on board for the long term. And if you would make clean code part of your definition of done, that would make sure that you would have this productivity in the long run, also when you're doing maintenance. So it's not a one-time fix. It's something that you and your team have to do iteratively. And lesson number 6, don't be afraid to revert or reconsider an architecture decision. If you have a few alternatives ready, switching could still be feasible, and it could save you some time in the short term. To summarize, don't decide today what you can also decide later. And it makes me wonder. Now this time, we're wondering if the project will be finished in time, because we had a bit of a delay there. Your head is humming and it won't go, in case you don't know. The pipe is calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind? Is this the first time we tell our customer the project isn't doing so well? I'm hoping this isn't the first time and that we talked to her before, because if this is the first time, let's revisit lesson number 4, acknowledge any publicity, good or bad, and make sure to do it in time. Otherwise, you might be too late. Your stairway lies on the whispering wind. I'm missing the full band here, right? Okay, let's leave it at that. This solo is an ambitious one. It's an ambitious one, right? And I think you've gathered from me that one of my main talents is singing, right? I do like to sing. Playing guitar, I just taught myself for a bit, right? I'm still working on it. Actually, learning to play the electric guitar was my COVID lockdown project, right? So I never touched an electric guitar before that. I played a bit of acoustic stuff. But this solo is pretty ambitious, right? And the first time I did this talk, I took about 2 months to prepare the talk, and I could have spent 2 months preparing this solo, right? So that I could perform it flawlessly here live on stage without any band to back me up, but still I could have done that. And then you would have been able to enjoy that perfect solo here today, but none of the other stuff would exist from this talk, right? None of the learnings, none of the other stuff. The singing, the memes, the very accurate explaining of lyrics, right, wouldn't exist. And actually, for my subject, this is a good thing, because this is a perfect analogy for a software project. We tend to focus on the most exciting stuff, the stuff that catches everyone's attention, and we try to deliver those few exciting bits in the best way we possibly can. But those few bits typically won't lead to any business value, at least not on their own. They need a lot of other stuff surrounding it to be able to deliver business value. If you were sitting here right now and I would just deliver a perfect solo, and now I would say, thank you, Jaycon, see you next time. You were like, okay, that was nice, but what do I learn from this? Right, so every aspect of this talk is needed, at least in my opinion. You can have your own opinions, of course, but it's the same way with software. It's cool to have exciting bits, cool algorithms that do complicated stuff and that makes you proud of your work, but you also need the boring parts. You need unit tests, right? You need some orchestration, you need infrastructure code. And it's okay if the exciting bits just work, right? They don't have to be perfect. You're not going to spend 4 sprints on the most exciting algorithm in your software development project. You just churn out in 1 sprint, you just churn out the first implementation that will do, that will be okay, right? This solo wasn't perfect, and it didn't need to be, because this talk is about explaining lyrics, and the solo doesn't have any lyrics whatsoever, so I don't even have to explain any lyrics here. I'm actually wondering why I prepared the solo, although the funny thing here is that if I would continue practicing the solo in my free time starting tomorrow, there will be a point in time where it's no use, because I can't use it as an analogy anymore for a software product, because if this solo becomes perfect, then my whole point will be gone. So I'm not going to be spending the rest of my free time perfecting the solo, maybe a bit, but not to perfection, because then I cannot make this point anymore. Through all that turmoil, we have come across lesson number 7. A feature should just work. It doesn't need any frills. It doesn't need to be gold-plated. It can also be made out of wood, to further that analogy here. If it works, then great. Deliver it, shift your focus to another feature, and make that one work. Also, fun fact, when I was trying to learn to play the solo, emphasis on trying, it really struck me how fast it was supposed to be, because I practiced this along with the recording, and it was so fast. It was much faster in the recording than I perform it right now. So didn't the song start out really slowly in the beginning? Of course, I dove into this, and this turns out to be true. The tempo in this song isn't constant. There's a subtle increase in tempo throughout the entire song. And again, in the same interview, this is what Led Zeppelin's guitarist, Jimmy Page, said on the subject. One of the cardinal rules for a studio musician was that you didn't speed up. So this is why Stairway has a constant acceleration to it, deliberately breaking the musical rules and traditions. Very rebellious, right? And if we would look at the numbers, we would see that Jimmy Page is right, of course. Here we see the actual tempo increase in numbers. Verse 1 all the way to the left is 72 beats per minute. If that means something to you, it will mean something to you if you're a drummer or a musician, right? The number of beats that the music has within a minute. So to compare the second hand on your watch will be 60 beats per minute, so 72 is a bit faster than that. The solo, almost at the end of the song, is almost 100 beats per minute, so it has sped up, which is something that you cannot ever do as a studio musician, right? Well, I've thought of another good analogy, just like a software project in danger of not making its deadline. When the project deadline approaches, all work that is done on it feels rushed, and more often than not, folks are doing overtime, just like I did overtime, trying to learn the solo in the right tempo, and I failed miserably, so the least we could do is learn from this. If you rush your project and need overtime to finish it, it will probably not end well in the long run. Might seem okay in the short run, certainly not in the long run, which brings us to lesson number 8, don't rush your project. And as we wind up down the road, our shadows taller than our soul, there walks a lady we all know, who shines one light and wants to show how everything still turns to gold. And if you listen very hard, the joy will come to you in life. When all the want is all to be a rock and not to roll. And she's buying a stairway to heaven. Thank you. So, do you see that? The lady is still buying the software. This must mean we made it to the end. We made it after all. Final lesson, thank the customer for sticking with you until the end. It's good to make a good final impression, because next time the lady needs another stairway, you want her to think of you again. Here they are, folks, 9 reasons why your next software project can be better because of the song Stairway to Heaven. And we probably could have gotten a bit more if we would also consider playing the song backwards and use the dark, sadistic hidden messages that this song obviously contains. If you don't get that reference, Google it after the talk. It does contain some dark stuff. Just by playing the song in a regular direction, here's what we've learned. Verify the needs of the customer, the requirements and your interpretation of them. Identify risks, acknowledge any publicity, good or bad. Include clean code in your definition of done. Don't be afraid to revert any architectural decision. A feature should just work, doesn't need any frills, don't rush the project, thank the customer. And the best thing is, because this is a very boring list of tips, you don't have to memorize it. You just have to memorize the lyrics of this fantastic song. And these tips will come to you naturally. Next time you hear this song, you won't think the same about it. So go forth and memorize these lyrics, because knowing the lyrics to this song by heart can and will make you a better software developer, and I hope that Pat may listen to me, because I think she might be convinced right now. I hope that was useful to you folks. Here's some information about me if you want to keep in touch. If you liked the technical content, follow me on Twitter or Mastodon or wherever you do your social media, or look to my webpage to see what other talks I do or what things I'm up to. I like to blog about new features in Java, so I'll do long blog posts on Java 22. I did one in March. We'll do one again in September when Java 23 comes out. And if you're like, I didn't like any tech, but I like the music, you can visit my SoundCloud profile, and there are some live recordings that I did there with a few friends. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of the conference day. Thanks. Right. Cool guitar, you rocked. Where can I buy the album? Didn't publish an album. Can we get slides somewhere? Yes, my slides are on hanno.codes, or they will be very soon. So check that webpage out, or my Twitter profile. I'll post them there as well. Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy.